Hello, everybody. Hey, y'all. Hey, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Relationship Talks. And you know what I have to do before we get started and before I introduce my amazing guest tonight, I got to share it to my page, y'all. So just a minute, come on in, make yourselves comfortable while I get this going and sharing this to my page to let people know that we are here. Listen, Mr. Taylor and I were already talking behind the scenes, and I got so excited. I was like, let me push this button so we can have this conversation live. But y'all, look, I'm going to tell you all about him in just a second. Just got to share it to my page. But while I am doing that, please come in and let us know where you're watching from. We want to know that you are here. Say hello. We want this to be an interactive discussion. And if I can find my page, that would be wonderful. Hold on, y'all. I do this every week. It's always something. Okay. All right. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So come on in the room and tune in now. Okay. All right. Let me make sure got that set up. Okay. All right. So we are good. I think we are ready to get started. Welcome to another episode of Relationship Talks. I am your host, Siobhan Carter, the You Relationship Advocate. I used to say coach, but you know, it's so much bigger than coaching. It's really, I am an advocate for people having a love relationship with themselves that fosters healthy relationships with other people. And tonight, I am joined by an amazing brother who I have just been connected with, Mr. Anthony Taylor. And Mr.
Hi.
Taylor is a master communicator who has positively influenced the lives of thousands of individuals throughout the DC metro area. Mr. Taylor has 25 years in law enforcement and is now the founder and CEO of CME Speak LLC and CME Speak Foundation, which includes Motivate One, Inspire All, for the purpose of helping individuals within the communities to develop strong communication skills through motivational speaking, inspirational speaking, and team building. He is an author, and we're going to talk about his book, this book that he's a part of tonight. But before we get into all of that, let us welcome Mr. Anthony Taylor. Hello, Mr. Taylor.
Hey, Miss Carter. Thanks for the
How are you?
inviting.
Yes, thank you for saying yes. Yes. And Reggie has just logged in. Hey, Reggie. Hello. So anything else you want to share with the people about who you are before we get into tonight's discussion?
You know, Miss Carter, I'm also a master mason. I'm also a Shriner. You know,
Mm-hmm.
which our whole goal is to serve our community, one
Mm-hmm.
customer at a time. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thank you for the invite, and I really appreciate the platform to speak on.
Nice, nice. Thank you for saying yes. So I was connected, excuse me, with Mr. Taylor through my good friend Reggie, and he told me about how instrumental he was in his life and the impact that he made. And then he told me about this book that he was a part of. So I had to get this book. It is a compilation project. It's called Love Chronicles, Love Manifesting in All Forms from His Hand and Her Perspective. So, in this book, Mr. Taylor writes about his story. And so, before we get into what your specific chapter is about, you wrote your story in this compilation. So, tell us about how you became a part of this project. How did it even come about?
Well, I had a friend of mine. She'd been a part of this contemplation for a few times. And she's really been, she approached me several times in reference to doing a story.
Mm,
We speak to a lot of kids in our community, in reference to engaging them and just trying to get a change in mindset and thinking of more of a positive and some alternative ways in solving problems. And she was asking me, was I able to be able to put that on, in words and be able to share that with one of her, with her co-authors. And I thought about it for a while. Then you kind of pray on some things and see how it works out. Some things are starting to transition. So I'm starting to transition and starting to think about retirement, getting, moving into a whole new field. And I thought this would be, a platform that I'll be able to succeed on, and just kind of start get out there, share my little story, get the little kinks out and things of this nature. And trust me, the love I received since I've done it has been overwhelming. And I'm kind of a little embarrassed a little bit because I don't like standing in front of the line.
Yeah, yeah. You say you're a behind the scenes type person. You like to,
Yes, ma'am.
serve from behind. But it's a story that definitely I wanted to know more about. When I read your story, I was like, man, it is so inspirational. Just reading, the story that I wrote, and I wanted to know more. So and this was your first time writing and sharing your story?
I've shared some stories, because again, we speak to youth. So I've shared my stories, but not on a platform where, this book has reached, a lot of people around the country. So normally
Hmm.
I've been, pretty limited to the DMV area. And now, I got friends reaching out from Alaska, California, Florida, and it's becoming overwhelming. So I'm not used to this type of attention.
Yeah.
And then you asked me to be on a podcast. I'm still sweating, and so I'm trying to make sure that I don't pass out on you here.
It's perfectly fine. It's fine. We're going to make you feel nice and comfortable. It'll be fine. We're just having a conversation. Nobody else is here. So you're fine. You are fine. But yeah, so what was the experience like for you? Because I am a publisher. I have a publishing company called Purpose Publishing Company, and it can be an overwhelming task sometimes for first time authors as they are journeying through the process of writing their story and figuring out what to put in it and what to take out and all that. So what was that experience like for you in writing your story?
I've told my story several times. I
Hmm.
speak to kids, around this area, and I've been in a lot of institutions, and I thought I was on point with it. But nah, not when it comes to this publishing thing. I had to rewrite that thing about 1,000 times. I got to the
Uh,
point I was getting frustrated. I said, maybe this is not for me. But
yeah.
they gave me some guidance because they said they want this story to resonate with the readers. So I had to make sure that the words reach our audience so that they can understand clarity. Because, I'm speaking in law enforcement terms and things of
Right.
this nature about, tough love. And I'm doing this. And they're like, no, 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 no. Maybe we suggest, so that thing went back. That editor hit me probably at least 15, 20 times.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things we hear all the time. Just is like, okay, I thought I was just going to write my story, and then y'all take it and run with it. And it's like, no, we got questions. We got to fill in the gaps and just, all that stuff to make sure it's written so that the reader can get from it what they need from it. So yeah, I can understand that process. So the chapter that you wrote was Coach to Win, Mentor to Love. Why did you choose that title?
Um, that title, for me, because tough love is something that I always received. Affection within my household was very limited. No one
Mm,
ever pat you on the back for getting an A.
yeah.
If you got into a scrap or a fight, yes, whole family outside watching. But if in reference to school, things of this nature, it was few and far between. And I ran into some individuals along my journey up to this point that really gave me some sound advice, so to say. It
Mhm.
was advice that I had to take without having a choice, meaning it was no options to it. Anthony, you're going to do it this way. This is how we want it done. And this
Mhm.
is how you're going to move forward. And not knowing exactly, giving me that discipline to understand it and preparing me for my next move.
Mhm.
So my journey from junior high, high school, military, college, to my professional career,
Mhm.
incorporate individuals that gave me advice on life in reference to how I need to approach. And as a result of that advice and those choices the tough choices I had to make, I am the first of everything in my family. I'm the first to
Wow.
graduate from high school. I'm the
Mhm.
first to go to the military. I'm the first to go to college. I'm the first to graduate from college. I am the first to receive a master's degree within an educational system where I
Mhm.
graduated from high school with a 1.6 GPA.
Wow.
So when I say I've had the opportunities to change my life because of these individuals that was incorporated along my journey, gave me, a platform, bought my first house. I'm sorry, I've bought several houses.
Mm-hmm.
My credit is good. I
Mm.
have been in the same job for over 25 years. This
Wow.
is the first of everything in my family. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, now I understand why those coaches along my journey gave me that tough love. They put
Mm-hmm.
me in a situation where I can make choices and I can make sound decisions in reference to making sure I can affect someone's life.
Yeah.
Because when you put that responsibility in your hands, that's a big task for someone to have. And someone's family is trusting you with their son or with their daughter and making
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're going to take care of them. That's very sound for me. And I can actually, and I always wondered why all these things happen to me. I'm not the richest guy, but I am far from being broke. I'm a stone's throw for where I came from, but I would never forget that because I understand what they gave me is I broke generational curses. It started
Yeah.
with me and it will not end with me. My
Yeah.
children, this been instituted. They have to make sure they get up. Education is priority one on every level.
Mm-hmm.
Respect everyone. I don't care, even if you're wrong, you're still going to respect them. There's a
Mm-hmm.
systematic process in taking care of these things.
Yeah.
That's why I chose that title. And I apologize for going on a little too long, but
Mhm.
I just, for me, it's a very significant title and it means a lot to me because
Yeah.
tough love is something I've been given my whole life and I never understood why. But as a
Yeah.
result of the success I have received and achieved, that's why I chose that name.
And one of the things that you talked about, without giving the story away, because we want people to purchase the book, but one of the things that we were talking about even before you we came on live was the fact that there have been people throughout your journey that you mentioned that have been instrumental in your life over the years and just your journey, that it just seems like a lot of people don't get those opportunities, or it just seems like there was something about your life that was purposeful, that God put all of these individuals in your life to make sure that your path went the way that it has gone. And so can you talk to what it felt or what that was like for those mentors and those people to be a part of your life and how instrumental they were, and then what that did for you in your development?
My junior high coach, his name is Mr. John Hollop. He gave me an opportunity to join the wrestling team because I was wrestling everybody in the school. He might as well he gave me an opportunity to do it in an organized fashion, and he taught me basics.
Mm.
And when folks said that I was incorrigible, he still took the time out to come pick me up, make sure he took me over. He gave me a setting that I could achieve, and he gave me an opportunity to be able to work on fundamentals without criticism.
Mm.
Been hyperactive my whole life, and I can never do one thing just once. So he would tell me to do one thing 1,000 times, and I would do one thing for 1,000 times.
Wow.
And I never had a problem with that. So it was just a motor that was always running. So he gave me a platform to start understanding how I can control my energy and how I
Hmm.
can channel it in one direction and be effective with it.
Wow.
And he passed me along to some coaches that he knew that will follow up on the process that he had started.
Mm, mm, mm.
They held me to such high standards and they would never allow me to quit. And I never understood why. And it would always just be me. So in
Mhm.
the summer times, instead of being on the block, I would have an opportunity. They say, well, we need you to help us out on this ranch this summer. So they would take me to a ranch. And then when I say I had to work my butt off the whole summer, they said, Anthony, we're going to give you some money, but however, you need to be here throughout the summer. And we need you to do this, 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 and this. So,
Mhm.
but never knowing they was keeping me out of trouble and harm's way.
So before you go on, Mr. Taylor, let me ask this question. How did that feel? Did were you skeptical about it? Like, did you say, why are these people doing all these nice things for me? Were you defensive or were you receptive? What was it like with them being so attentive to you?
So, but they gave me the attention because I was on the edge. I was sitting on the fence. So I was still
Okay.
hanging out with these guys. You know, I was still hanging out with my homeboys.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be on that fence. You know, I'll come over here and I'll do my work, but I'll go back to these homeboys. So
Got you.
from a punitive side, if I got in trouble, I'll be the one that got the punishment.
Mm.
It said, "Oh, no, 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 Anthony, no, you know you can't do that. You know that was wrong." But I said, "Well, I was only just standing there." They said, "No, still, you still a part of that. So we need.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we need to do. So we've been asked to take you out of the city. So we agreed to take you to this farm, and we're going to bring you out here, and this is what we're going to do. So you don't have a
Okay.
choice because you
Got
can't leave." So they made
you.
sure they locked me in from a mental standpoint and saying that, oh, if I had a choice to do it, I wasn't going to do it. So
Okay.
from a standpoint of saying that no, you don't have an option. This is the only option that you had. So
Mm-hmm.
once I got there, and it became something else because now there was allowing me, giving me structure. I had to go to bed on time. I had to get up at a certain time. I had to wear certain clothes at a certain time. So I had to make sure I had to take a shower. So all these things was regimented. They gave me structure, which I
Mm.
never understood. So I love now I'm a fan of just structure from anywhere. If you want
Yeah.
me to do a job, I need 1 through 10 and how you want me to get it done. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any issues on the other side. So I want to make sure I'm clear and precise in what I do. They gave me that. So, and over time, when they passed me along, they gave the same information they passed along to the next coach,
Mm.
unknowingly of what they was telling me in reference. So their suggestion is, well, you have to go to this junior college. I go, why do I have to go to that junior college?
Right.
Well, this has been highly suggested, you know, because you can't go to any local schools because we already received the notification that they do not want you there.
So they were gently steering you into a direction that was keeping you away from what, where you getting in trouble. Okay, got it.
They put, they made sure I was on an island.
Yeah, yeah.
And unknowingly, because I'm taking a word as fact, because you know
Yeah.
these are my mentors, and I'm sure they wasn't going to steer me wrong, and I
Right.
believe everything that they were giving me. So
Mm-hmm.
I followed that lead, not knowing why, because a lot of other my other friends have been offered the same, but
Yeah.
they just chose and they opted out. Why? I don't know, because for me, it became a sense of trust, sense of belonging, because they
Hmm.
were talking to me and they cared about exactly what was happening to me,
Yeah.
and I never had that before.
Mm.
I'm talking about even in my own house.
Wow.
So these coaches was giving me this type of love, and it was
Hmm.
tough love. It wasn't like they were just babying me. It was always
Right.
tough love, and I could
Yeah.
never take the shortcut. They would all make sure that I did it the long way.
So let me ask you this before we go on into your journey. When you mentioned that in your story, you mentioned that love was a foreign concept, especially after your grandparents transitioned. So, tell us more about that. What did it look like before and after? Why did you say love was a foreign concept?
So my grandmother and my grandfather was my world, right?
Mm.
So have you ever had someone talk to you and I never knew we were poor until she passed
Wow.
because from food on the table to giving you a hug and making you tucking you in, my grandmother did this entire thing for me. And she always, I still remember her saying that, you know what, you could be anything that you want to be. She said you got to make sure that you understand dream big. And I never understood why she was always, but she would say it to me, dream big. She said,
Mm.
I'm guaranteed. She said, I promise you, you're going to be something special. I'm like, well, but I already know that. You know, you're my grandmother. I already know that. She said, tough times will come, but you will overcome. And I need you to always believe that you can achieve. And I never understood that. So when she passed, I don't know if she was preparing me that she was going to pass and things of this nature. So, but when my grandmother passed, my grandfather passed shortly after.
Mm.
And my uncle, I had an uncle that was still living, and he used to work in a peanut mill. I was born in Alabama, Andalusia, Alabama, to be exact. And he worked 12 to 18 hours a day. Never had a relationship with, with us kids or things of this nature. But he was a provider.
Mm-hmm.
But when he passed, my mother has never had the responsibility of raising kids. So she was a party. She used to like partying. She used to hang out. So my brother and I would be home for days. We'd be by ourselves.
Wow.
So we we ate peanuts. That's all we had was just peanuts, boiled peanuts, fried peanuts, whatever it is about peanuts we ate. We ate for almost a good 10 months, 10, 11 months, somewhere around there.
How old were you during this time?
Um, I was roughly fourth, third, fourth grade.
Wow.
So we was in a pretty good situation. But our
Mm-hmm.
neighbors was still good friends to this day. Gave us meals from time to time, made sure that they check in on us. But we was there by ourselves.
Mm.
So until then, we had an uncle and a cousin that lived in Ohio, in Lorain, Ohio, to be exact. They finally received word from our neighbors that we was in this situation.
Mm.
No clothes, with no running water. When I
Mm.
say we had dire, and it just became pretty bleak because it was
Yeah.
just my brother and I.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how my grandmother, when she was living, but I was never hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like I was unloved.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, when she passed, it's like a lot of things just changed for me personally.
Yeah.
So because I'm like, my grandmother always loved me, but my mom's supposed to love me the same way, but I never received it. My
Yeah.
grandmother said I will always be loved and someone will always protect me, but my mother wasn't protecting me. So, but she said she wasn't protecting us and whatever. She said, there's a different stories, opinions, and things of this nature, but I can tell you exactly what I felt, especially with my grandmother. So,
Right. Wow. Wow.
so that's how we got onto the point. So that love, I felt unconditional love when she was living, but when she passed,
Mm-hmm.
it became something totally different for me.
And you know what's interesting about it is how prophetic your grandmother was. It's like she knew how your life was going to turn out. She said you are going to be, dream big because you're really going to be successful and be someone. And it's like she knew that. She knew you were going to be protected. I think that is so amazing that even though she didn't live to see it on this side, that she knew it was going to happen. Did that motivate you in any way, like after her death, just knowing that what your grandmother told you? Did you hang on to those words after that?
It was pretty tough. Like when she had passed,
Hmm.
'cause I think about my grandmother to this day. So I
Yeah.
still can tell you the stories that that she was always when she talked you to sleep and things of this nature, and she always have these conversations, rub my back, or those are the, I still remember those whole little concepts right there, right? But she gave me such an inspiration, but I didn't see that until I started going. Once I got to Ohio, we started going through these tough times. That's when I was introduced to the hood. That's when I introduced to the block. That's when I
Mm.
started, the mindset becomes, and now a lot of people just don't understand. When you're a country boy and you move to a city, and then
Yeah.
it's like it's wide open. Nobody cares what time you come home, what you're doing. You just got to get out there. You got to live on your own. Then it becomes a dog eat dog world. And I don't think a
Mm.
lot of people understand that concept. So if
Mhm.
you're a young man and you don't have any real foundation or saying that, what, this is the direction you need to go, education is priority, you're going to start doing some pretty hard things, and so, but once my cousin, my uncle, they retrieved us from Alabama and they took us to Ohio.
Mhm.
Shortly after, my mom came to Ohio. So the chaos followed. So my mother used to just beat me because the stories I told my uncles, my aunt about how the life was when we were there. And
Yeah.
she says, I never did that. You don't tell nobody our business.
Mm.
So my mom and I relationship was always strained.
Yeah.
She until she passed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I really had a resentment for my mom for a very long time because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel protected. But I always wanted my mom, and I
Right.
always thought, like, I dreamed that, things would be great between us and things of this nature. But it never
Yeah.
turned out like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I found a way to forgive my mom because when she passed, a year prior, they called me. I was here in Maryland, and I was at
Mm-hmm.
work actually. And they called me and asked me. They said if it was, your mother. This is your mother. I said yes. My mother's name is Mary Taylor. And they said, well, we need you to come home. And I said, why would I need to come home? Because family's already taken care of her.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, you really need to come home. Your mom is in a situation that you need to get home.
Wow.
So when I get home, my mom had a situation where my brother, he was high and drunk, and she had a stroke when she was in the house.
Mm.
So instead of calling the the ambulance, he sat her up, and she said, "No, I'll be all right. Just sit me up." And he
Mm.
left out.
Mm-mm-mm.
So my mom, has another stroke. Then she falls on the floor
Mm-mm.
and and has a heart attack.
Wow.
So that incapacitated her whole left side. So they had to
Mm.
place her in a nursing home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while she was in the nursing home, she also suffered some things. She fell off the bed, broke her hip, but you can't break your hip if you can't move, if you're in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my family would go to the nursing home, and they was very, very rude to people, yelling, screaming, and things of this nature, and they was taking it out on my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I was called. So
Mm.
some family friends was working at the nursing home, so they called me. So I go home, and I had to get all these things in order. That's when I realized that the conversation that I had, the resentment I had towards my mom meant nothing because
Mm-hmm.
I never had an opportunity to sit down with my mom and we ever had a conversation to talk about the things that had happened because
Mm.
everybody was yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
So I got an opportunity to tell her my side of the story, how I felt in
Mm-hmm.
reference to how I felt within this situation. I love my mom more than anything. I have my mom's ashes. I have
Mm-hmm.
her urn. So I have these
Mm-hmm.
things. But when I was able to express this about my mom to her, and she was in a coma. So,
Mm.
but my mom is crying, like, but she's crying, but she's in a coma. But I'm like,
She.
so, and I apologized because I could have been a better son. I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I, I could have done a lot of things better, but I was resenting things because my grandmother set such a high standard for me
Right.
that,
Right.
and I expected my mom to live up to those expectations, but she didn't have the skill
Yeah.
set to do so. So I can't
Right.
hold her on that type of level. So I
Mm-hmm.
apologized. I
Mm.
apologized. I said I was sorry. And it was like the world lifted off my shoulders at that time. Right.
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2 days later, my mom passed.
Mm.
So
Mm.
tomorrow's never promised, and I got to make sure that everybody understand that. So the
Mm.
people that we love, we got problems with. You got to make sure that we make amends for that
Yeah.
because we don't have an opportunity to take it back, especially when they're
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That is amazing. And I'm glad you got that opportunity to be able to share what you needed to say, and have evidence that she could hear you,
Yes, ma'am.
and just to be able to release that. That is so beautiful to be able to do that, because a lot of times people don't get that opportunity and then walk around just holding that, I wish I would have said this, I wish I would have done this. So it's beautiful that you were able to get that opportunity. So when we look at your journey, just with starting with your grandmother, and then with your grandmother's passing, and then the challenges that you experienced with moving to Ohio, and the relationship with your mother, and then you have these mentors that are in your life who are advocating for you in junior high, high school, and college. So what was that experience like, where they were kind of steering you, in the direction to groom you into the person that you are now? So how did that come about?
I'll go back to my junior, my middle school wrestling coach,
Mm-hmm.
and him creating a platform for me, and he passed me along to my high school coaches. My high school coaches encouraged me to go to the military, so I took the ASVAB. I failed the ASVAB probably like 15 times. I didn't
Really?
have, I couldn't, man, I failed that thing. I just couldn't pass it. So
Wow.
I'm sure that the guy, the last time I showed up, he just
Uh-huh.
gave me the bare minimum to get in
Yeah.
because he's tired of me showing up.
Uh,
And, and so I had the opportunity to enter the military
mm,
because I had colleges looking at me because I was good at wrestling, but I didn't, my grades were not in a space where they could accept me. So I went to the military. But as a result, going to the military, during the initiation phase of being, of joining the military, they gave me a college fund, the GI Bill. They gave me that, which I didn't ask for. They gave me all these things, right? They just
yeah.
give me. I'm like, but I don't know. I never had a paycheck before, so I never knew it was coming out or anything.
Uh-huh.
So I go to the military. So this is where I get my discipline. This is my first disciplinary experience in reference to making sure that understanding the systematic process and understanding that we are uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, black, white, green, yellow, we're uniform. We all act the same. We're gonna perform the same. And there's no ands, no ifs, no buts. So the military gave me that foundation. And when I tell you, I took a lot of butt whoopings in the military in basic training.
And you
So
went
I
into
learned. So I learned the hard way on that one.
the which branch of service was the Army,
I'm
Air
an
Force,
army guy,
Army?
and being an army guy, um, I got in a little trouble like in basic training,
Mm-hmm.
and because the soldiers that was around me thought I was worth saving, so they stood
Mm.
up for me, and they gave me an opportunity to stay in the military.
Once
So
again, Mr. Taylor, this theme keeps happening. People
it's
advocating for you.
and unknowingly, I did never knew that they were looking at me like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they followed me my whole military career.
Yeah.
So along my journey in the military, I met a lieutenant. His name is Mark Meadows,
Mm.
and I was I was in the infantry unit, but they made me his driver, and I did not like this man on no level. I mean, I he made me work so hard. I mean, he never allowed me to do anything easy. I mean, I just thought he just out to get me. Period.
Wow.
So, but during my tenure with him, so about after a year with him, really became a guy I leaned on because he was always asking me, what am I going to do? Am I going to re-up? Am I going to make this a 20-year career? What are you going to do, Anthony? I need you to know what you're going to do because, soon you're going to be ready to get out, and I need to
Mm-hmm.
know what you're doing. I said, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Lieutenant Meadows, one night we were out in the field on some field exercises, and he asked me to take a drive with him. He needed to scout some areas, and I parked. And when he's getting out, he said, "Well, I'm gonna walk about 10 miles." He said, "I'll be back." He said, "But this is what I need you to do for me. I need you to write down the goals. Just promise me the things that you're gonna do when you get out." And I was like, well, I'm not understanding. He said, I just need you to write them goals down. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, all right. And he just said, and do not say, I'm going to work a 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. I need goals.
Mm.
He said, I promise to go to college. I promise to put my best foot forward. I
Mm.
promise to get a job. I promised, to be a good soldier, even if I'm not in the military.
Yeah.
I will be kind to others. I mean, I had to come up with all these things. Then he told me to sign it. So I
Mm.
signed it. So I signed it, and I just left it on his seat. So when my expiration came to get out of the military, they shipped me back. I went to Oakland, and I took the bus from California back to Ohio. and I was just sitting around. I was doing absolutely nothing, and I was just, starting to hang out again on the block.
Mm-hmm.
And I received a letter one day in the mail, and there was no return address on it, and it's everything that I wrote in
Oh,
reference
shoot.
all my promises.
Oh
So
my goodness.
that's how I went to my high school wrestling coaches, and that's how I got to California in reference to wrestling, because
Wow.
I promised to go to school, and my
Mm,
high school coaches said, "Well, we got a place for you."
mm.
So this, I was introduced to Coach Dave Foster,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave Foster had many titles at this university. I mean, this little junior college. He was the mayor of the town. He was a professor. He was in charge of like a little business that he had there. He was everybody to everybody. Everybody knew Coach Foster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Coach Foster made sure, because I couldn't take college courses because I didn't meet the basic equivalency. So I had to take these remedial classes for a year before I could even get into any college. And
Mm-hmm.
he was on me so hard. He made sure that I was at study tables. He made sure that I was in the gym working out. He made sure all these things. But he had a twist to it. He would make sure that he would end it with, well, you Ohio boys are good for just getting in trouble, going to jail, getting drunk, falling out, and going back and dealing drugs wherever you're coming from. So
Mm-mm.
he would consistently tell me this, but he would make sure he say that in front of the whole team. And automatically I would say, you know what, coach, you got us wrong. And he just, oh, really? Oh, now you're telling me what I don't know. Get out. So he would throw me out of practice, literally throw me out of practice.
Wow.
But our Ohio boys had a tendency to get in trouble a lot. They get in
Mm-hmm.
fights on campus, and they was doing all these things. But as a result of them getting to these fights, I get thrown out of the room. And they were there already. So when I came out, the other Ohio boys was there. So it's about 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So now, but the coach is challenging me. He's not challenging them.
Right, right.
So now I'm approaching my homeboys in references. Listen, I said, y'all got to slow down a little bit, because everything that you guys are doing is getting me kicked out of the room. And I said, you guys going to have to slow down. They was like, man, go ahead, man, stop playing. I said, listen, all right, it's on. So I'm fighting my homeboys because I'm getting kicked out of the room.
Right,
You
right.
know what I'm saying? I said, so I'm not standing for this anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm fighting all my homeboys. I'm after them. So after probably about 6 weeks, there's no more fights on campus, after parties. Now everybody's going to class, because if they wasn't going to class, I'm getting kicked out of practice.
You're getting, yeah. So it's almost like you were designated as the leader without you realizing it. It's like they were setting you up to lead the rest of the Ohio guys to be like, look, but you had to go through your own process to realize that. You probably didn't even know what was going on. But it's like, look, I'm not going to keep getting in trouble for y'all.
I went from being loved by my homeboys to, look,
Yeah.
they ain't not talking to me no more. But
Uh
class,
oh. Hello. Oh. I can't hear you anymore. Let's see. Hello. I can't hear anything. Gotta love technology. All right, y'all. We'll be back in just a second. See if we can get him back on. We're getting good into the good conversation. That's all right. If you are still tuning in with us, just leave a comment. Let us know that you're still there as we try to get him back in. like in the movie Full Metal Jacket. hmm We'll see if we can get him back on. Just a second. Yeah, but this is a really great conversation. Just to know that it just seems like his life was predestined to go in the way that it went, and to keep him on the right path, people kept coming into his life, you know. So it's like, let's see. Okay.
Huh.
All right. We can hear you now. Gotta love technology.
Oh my goodness. I almost had a heart attack and I almost passed out.
That's okay. You made it back. I knew you would get back in. It's fine. So you were saying that, it caused a divide between you and your friends, like they stopped talking to you after that.
Yes, ma'am. However, we ended up winning. I became a California state champion in wrestling,
Hmm.
but I also received a 2-year degree in correctional science and a 2-year degree in
Okay.
administration of justice.
Yeah.
All as a result of what this coach, he made sure I could not take any shortcuts. And
Wow.
he demanded of me so much that he indicated that, Anthony, I need you. He said, but you weren't listening to me. If I told you what you need to do, you would not listen to me because you weren't accepting the roles. And he said, your influence, especially with your homeboys, and he said, you had the influence, but you just never utilized it because you just assumed that we're all from this place and everybody had their own. He said, but when
Right.
you spoke, they did certain things.
Hmm.
And we're talking about, I was 142 pounds soaking wet. And when my
Hmm.
homeboys, we're talking about, I had a heavyweight there and he was like 300. He was like 300. And I had another guy that was like 285 and 190 pounds. I had some really big guys, but the
Hmm.
influence of like just being from home, they looked up to me, and I never knew exactly what that was because we were just all from the same place. That's how I
Right.
always looked at things, and I never thought that I had a significant role in them listening to or where we going and how we was doing it until I
Hmm.
got there. So I never knew or looked at that leadership role on that
Hmm.
level until he recognized that and he kind of showed me that.
Wow, wow. And I want to touch on that. And this time is going by so fast, so we only have about 15 minutes left. But I want to talk about, fast forward to the work that you were doing in law enforcement and even the work that you're doing now. Like, how did all the stuff that you have gone through in your journey, how do you pour that into people when you were in law enforcement and then in the CME Speaks organization?
But it's tough love. One of the
Hmm.
things I've learned over this time and how we can be effective in reference to our young men and our young women is that we got to make sure they understand there's a bigger picture than what they see in front of them. But in order for them to see that, we got to make sure that we give them a direction. And sometimes the direction that we have them walk in is a direction that they don't want to walk to
Yeah.
or walk through.
Hmm.
But if we do not recognize their faults and correct them and show them the right way, we will never get them out the front door. They will continue to go out the back door.
Hmm.
So one of the things that we put in play is one thing we get our kids and we have them understanding. These are the things I expect of you. This is how soon we need to get this from you. And this is the order we want it. I don't want it 1, 9, 10. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Hmm.
But as a young man or a young woman, remember, we don't need one chance. We don't need two. We don't need three. We don't need four. We need as many chances as we can get as long as they're responding. If they're responding in a way, then that means there is some light for us to help them get through that door. If we give them that structure and we give them a foundation that they can trust, if we build that, then we can help them achieve something that they thought was very bleak. I'm
Mm.
living proof of that. So one of the things that we try to make sure that we present is resources. If you
Mm.
need something, we ain't giving it to you. We're going to show you where it is, and we're going to school you how to get it.
Hmm.
If you need to be successful, you need to know how to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And you can never say, I did it myself. I'm the only reason for my own success. Because indirectly, someone has given you that moxie to keep moving. It can
Yeah.
be one of your adversaries, it could be your mom, it could be your dad. Somebody's going to inspire you to do something. So you must give credit to those sources that continues to drive you. One of the, practice makes perfect. We don't do it one time, we do it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
We build relationships, not with the young men and women. We also build relationships with their families. Because if I can get your mom to buy into this, your
Mm-hmm.
mom would tell on you 9 out of 10 times. If we find someone that loves you, they will give us the support that we need to help you walk out that front door.
Yeah.
But you just can't walk out the front door empty handed, because standing there just going with the status quo and say, okay, I got through it, I survived. No, what did you leave with? Either you're
Mm-hmm.
going to leave with a GED, your ID, birth certificate, social security card, how to get a job, where to go get a job, where to go to get job training. Those are the things that we try to make sure that we instill in these young men and women, and to ensure them to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
We must make sure along this journey and say, job well done. I appreciate you showing up today. We
Mm-hmm.
really thank you for just coming out today. I know it's difficult for you to get here, and I know that you got to travel through these hostile lands to come see me, and I really appreciate you for coming.
Wow.
It might not be on time, but as long as it's in the same day, we're
They
going to
got
give
it.
them credit for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That is amazing. I love that. And I can only imagine the impact that that has made in these young men and women's lives. Have they what kind of feedback have you gotten from youth, like as they've gotten older, and have any of them come back and talk to you about where they are now, and what your influence has helped them to do?
I have young men that call me every day. I had a young man that was on my caseload for almost 23 years.
Wow.
And I talk to this young man at least twice a week.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So you remember, we building men,
Yeah.
but in order for us to make sure that they can do or succeed, they need a platform to be able to express themselves freely.
Yeah.
So we build resources. So I have a young man that's, he's been struggling with the transition of incarceration for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we build resources. So I got people that works in the mental health field. I got people that work in the counseling field that helps them out when
Mm-hmm.
they need these services.
Mm-hmm.
So when some of my guys get home, like for coming home from incarceration for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of mandatorily, give them a nudge saying they have to sit down with these resources, and it's free for a year.
Mm.
So we can help them get their mental capacity in a space so they can operate and they can think freely. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, when you was incarcerated, especially for a period of time, they're on the clock. 6, 10, 12, 2, 6.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure that they have a healthy transition getting back to that other side so they can act accordingly and it's just not warehoused. We got to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that make a healthy transition and making sure that their mental faculties are in place so they can perform just like a normal person that lives in that community since they've been gone.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes me think about when you were working in law enforcement, and it just feels like you were such an anomaly, even though I'm not familiar with what it feels like to be incarcerated, just my limited knowledge of it. I would think that there aren't many people that are like you who are showing care and concern, for these people, especially these young people. Like, are there other people in law enforcement like you, or is this just a part of your purpose and calling in life? Like, it just seems like you were so different from what I imagine people in law enforcement would be like.
And I'm a little. I think my tactics are a little different because the outcomes I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
I come from that arena. But I
Mm,
still remember what it sounded like when the parole officer showed up looking for one of my cousins or one of my uncles. I
yeah.
still remember that. I know what it sounded like. But I
Mm,
also know what was said when the parole officer or probation officer was walking up the sidewalk, what they were saying. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So from my side, I still remember that.
Hmm.
So I just in order for me to understand what I need to do and get it to the next level, I have to have a buy-in. And the buy-in it comes from life experiences. And we got to be true to that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's that's all right. Yes. Mhm.
You got me emotional over here.
Oh, that's
Sorry
all
about
right.
that.
That's fine. Totally fine. Yeah. It's I think it's amazing work that you're doing and such needed work, in pouring into these young people and showing such care and concern and wanting them to walk different paths and just seeing in them the things that people saw in you. I think it's beautiful that you took everything that was deposited in you and now you're able to deposit that into the lives of these young people. So, how can people find out about CME Speaks and the work that you do? What's the age group? How can they be a part of it? All that good stuff.
I'm found 12 to 24 is the age group that because that's remember from middle school to our young adulthood.
Mhm.
Those are very impactful times.
Yeah.
So if we can reach them, that's the piece. But as
Hmm.
a Shriner, um, as a Shriner, as a Mason, I'm a Shriner's mentors coach,
Okay.
but also a part of from a Masonic Lodge, I'm also a mentor. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm always in the schools. We're always in these rec centers. We're
Mm-hmm.
always at those little shelters.
Hmm.
We're always handing out some food or some coats or some gloves, some hand warmers. We're very active in this community. And once I retire, I'm full throttle. See me speak.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I want to make sure I build a brand that reaches the mass. But we don't want to talk about it. It's all through action.
Hmm.
Because if we build a foundation and we support our kids, and you said earlier that you're an advocate.
Hmm.
I use that word a lot because remember, I don't want to make it seem that we're giving things away to these young men because they earn what they get.
Yeah.
So as
Hmm.
an advocate, we're going to ensure that the resource is going to be there so that we can point you in a direction so that you can succeed.
Hmm.
It might not be in the fashion that you like, but we got to make sure that the pathway is clear for you to get to the other side and not run into those obstacles that will hinder you from getting there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Taylor, I really appreciate you being on the show tonight and just sharing all the nuggets that you have shared and just sharing your journey with us so that we can see that there are people in life that are almost predestined, to be a part of our lives to help us and shape and mold us so that we can be the individuals that we are. And for those who are watching, if you see young people, if you know young people, if you have some young people in your lives, just take a close look at them. Even if they are acting out, think about what's really going on with them. Get curious about what's happening in their lives and why they do the things that they do, because a lot of times they're just misguided and need someone to provide structure, to provide support, and to know that they care. So that's really what I believe that children really need. So I'm really grateful that that's what you were provided and offered, and now you offer that to other children. So any last words before we end for tonight's conversation?
I really appreciate you. And remember, if you see it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, yeah,
Just that
I
simple.
love it. I love it. I love it. And before we leave, everyone, remember that a healthy relationship starts with you. So while you're focusing on finding a boo or maintaining your current relationship, don't forget to take care of the one who stood beside you through all of your relationship ups and downs. And that person is you. Your relationship with self matters. So until next time, good night.